All right, guys. We are here for race 2. We're at Oulton Park this week. Um, those of you who have been around the league for a while might have heard me say that Oulton Park is my favorite track. It holds a special place for me. It's one of the more complex tracks that we run. It is not a track that you can really ever get comfortable on, and that's kind of what I like about it. It keeps you on your toes at all times. So that's where we're at. We did run this track back in season 2. It was a pretty eventful race. There was some really good racing, but also a few ugly parts. We hope to keep from having those ugly parts tonight. But in a track this narrow where passing is really difficult, things can get a little messy if we're not patient out on the track. So we're hoping everybody will be patient enough with each other and give each other the room they deserve, and we can have a great race. So we've got a surprise pole sitter in Eric Alvarez tonight. He's always been fast. We've seen him up in the top 3 a few times, but we've never seen him on pole before, especially with a group of drivers as fast as what he has behind him. He's got a group of really fast guys behind him, so he did a great job to get on the pole for tonight's race. In second place, we got Mike Wojcik, Jesse Albert in third, Aiden Hasbrock in fourth, Mike Doherty in fifth, Pedro Perez in sixth, Ken North in seventh, Chris Rise in eighth, Andre Marchician, Casey Bennett, M. Derringer, Stefan Buckley, Scott Taylor, Evan Miller, Nick Driveman, James Parks, Maxwell Cerna, and Joe Marsiglia. That's our starting order for tonight. So really interested to see how this race goes. We had a great start to the season last week at Suzuka. Good racing by everybody there. Really intense race. Especially in the front of the pack. The racing up front was really, really close for about half of the race last week. So, and this week, arguably even closer in the top 10 during qualifying. The top 10 was separated by less than a second. So everybody was inside of 1 second. I think it was like 0.82 or something like that, separating the whole top 10. So really close qualifying times, really good competition there, so hopefully that will result in a really close race. Oulton Park is, if you don't know it, it's a complex track that has, you see right here, they're coming around this banked turn. It has kind of a little bit of everything. It has that one banked turn, that's the only banked turn on the track. What they're coming up to now is actually a triple chicane with a left, right, and then left as you go over a hill. It's a very complex set of turns, 1, 2, 3, and can be a lot of trouble for trying to deal with traffic when going through that section of the track. Then over this hill, down this straight, you have another chicane, which is a little bit oddly shaped as well. Oulton Park doesn't really have anything traditional. Everything is a little bit off shape-wise. The turns are a little bit, either they're banked, they're reverse banked, where you're actually, leaning the wrong way into the turn, or there's like a slight dog leg as you go over a hill, like what you're seeing right now. That's kind of a dog leg to the left as you go over the hill, and then you have another slight left. It's a very high-speed section right here, and then it comes into a high-speed right-hander, hard braking zone, and then a high-speed sweeper that kind of is almost like 2 turns in one. It's kind of an oddly shaped turn as well. And then down at the end of this long straight is probably the most traditional style turn on the track, which is just a hard right-hander. You come into you got this long straightaway, you build up a lot of speed, then you come into this really hard braking zone and bend to the right, and the car gets really loose as you kind of come over that hill right there and down the hill. Then you come back up the hill to come around towards the finish line, the start-finish line. So you see these guys getting everything formed up for the start of the race. It looks like Alvarez is a little bit out in front of everybody to start the race. There's the green flag. Alvarez, a little bit of a head start, and he got a drive-through penalty for jumping the start. I thought he looked a little out of place. So Alvarez, oh, that's got to be a heartbreaker for him. He's starting on pole for the first time with us. I don't know what his league racing experience was before he joined us, but this is certainly the first time he's been on a pole with this group of guys. Kind of look back through the pack here. You see everybody coming around through this high-speed section, coming around that banked turn. So Alvarez, while being in first right now, he's going to have to give that up because he's going to have to serve a drive-through penalty for being out of position at the start. I honestly forgot the race was about to start because I was watching him and he wasn't in formation. So just a little bit of a mental error there, I guess, for Eric. He hopefully can have a strong finish. He's shown a ton of speed here tonight, so even if with the drive-through, he should be able to make up some positions and finish strong. You see Wojcik right on him, trying to stay with him. Not sure if these guys are aware. I don't know if ACC actually tells you about penalties involving other drivers, so these guys are probably blissfully unaware that Alvarez is going to have to serve a penalty, so they're just thinking they got to catch him. You see the speed that he has. He's staying in front of Wojcik, Jesse Albert, Aiden Hasbrock, and Mike Doherty. Even Pedro Perez. That top six is really fast. So Alvarez got a lot of speed here to stay in front of these guys and lead this race right now. Let's take a look back through the pack a little bit here. See guys coming through this high-speed left-hander, then they're coming down into this bank turn. A lot of close racing going on between these guys. You see Pedro Perez back with us. He missed week one because he was out of town. He's happy to be back, I'm sure, and we're glad to have him back. Whoa, not sure what that was. What a loud popping sound. I don't know if that was on... I guess that was in-game. Not sure what that was. Let's check on Alvarez. He's still in the lead. Not sure when he's going to pit here. You see he's actually opened up his lead on Wojcik. Albert's all over Wojcik. Wojcik must have made a mistake because Albert's all over him now, and Alvarez has got a little bit of a gap going. So Alvarez passes the pits once again. You have 3 laps to serve the drive-through penalty, so he's going to use every one of them before he serves that penalty, trying to get as much clean racing as he can in under his belt. The further he can get ahead, the less he'll fall behind when he does the drive-through. So it's smart planning on his part to try to get as much of a lead as he can. And he does have a decent lead opened up. He's looking really strong. Meanwhile, behind this, Mike Doherty closing in on Hasbrock. You see all these guys making their way through this triple chicane. This is a tricky part of the track. So far, everybody's getting through there pretty nicely. Got some really close racing going on. Oh, I was trying to click on Chris Rise and he disappeared. He must have lost connection. Unfortunate turn of events for Chris. He was right in the front of the pack doing really well. Not sure what happened there. We're looking at Ken North right now in the Lamborghini. He's currently in 7th. Trying to put a little bit of a gap on Marchishin. And He's trying to catch up to Perez. He's about 3.2 seconds behind Pedro. Okay, so Alvarez is in the pits now, so he's serving that drive-through penalty. We'll see how far that puts him back. The pack is really tight, and everybody has been really fast here tonight. So this is going to hurt quite a bit. You see him coming out here as fast as he can. He is going to rejoin cleanly. Nobody around him right now. Looks like that's Evan Miller coming over the hill behind him. Miller is currently in 13th. So that's going to put Alvarez in 12th place. So from 1st to 12th, just like that in the blink of an eye. Really a disappointing start for Eric, but we hope he can finish strong. We've seen this before. When we ran this track back in Season 2, our pole sitter was Mike Doherty, and Mike had a problem with his, he was adjusting his VR headset at the start of the race, and when he was doing that, he accidentally stepped on the gas and took off and jumped the start and got, I think there were 3 people, because they all followed the leader. Sorry to throw you under the bus, Mike, but it's already on YouTube. Everybody's seen it. So, but he jumped the start, and 2 other people jumped it with him, thinking that the race was underway. And so we had 3 drive-throughs to start that race back in Season 2. So seen that 2 different times now at this track. So now we're looking at Mike Wojcik. Wojcik's in the lead. He's got just about 0.7 seconds ahead of Jesse Albert. You see behind him Hasbrock off the track. Hasbrock just lost the position to Mike Doherty, and he's close to losing it from Pedro Perez. Pedro right up on him. You see there's Doherty, Hasbrock, and then Perez. So that's a really fast threesome of drivers right there. And these guys are in, let's see, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So really fast group of guys right here. That's going to give, what that's going to do is it's going to open things up for Wojcik and Albert. Those guys, 1 and 2. You see Albert trying to keep pace with Mike, doing a pretty good job of it right now. Mike Wojcik, a former champion in this league, he won Season 2. He was our champion. He kind of set the tone early in that season with a dominant win at Bathurst, where he was untouchable that particular night, and that just kind of set the tone. Him and Jon Snow battled all season long, but Wojcik kind of always had it under control throughout that season. So it was his to lose pretty much from the beginning. So we've seen how dominant he can be at times. We, of course, this week we don't have Jon Snow with us. We know how fast Jon Snow is. He's a 2-time champion, and he's kind of the favorite in every race that he's in. So without Jon here tonight, that opens things up for some of these other guys, give them a little bit of an opportunity to gain some points. You see Hasbrock all over Doherty. Hasbrock runs wide, though, ends up in the grass. Still staying with Doherty. He had a couple tires in the grass for a second there, though, running a little bit wide. You see Pedro still right on Hasbrock, really close between those two. Alright, let's take a look back through the field. We've got Ken North, who's in 6th. Now Ken just lost the position to Andre Marchishin. Let's go back and see if we can see that happen. This is not an easy track to pass on, so you see Marchishin's quite a ways behind him coming into this high-speed braking zone right here. Coming into the bank turn, Ken just runs wide. Looks like he might have missed the braking point a little bit, and Andre just drove right by him. Not sure what happened there. Ken ended up on the outside and just out of position for a second. Andre dove right in and took advantage. That's a pretty clean pass on a tough part of the track. So that's going to give Marchishin 6th place. You see the BMW behind these guys. That is Casey Bennett. So Casey currently in 8th. It feels like all of these guys are higher up the running order than they are because they're driving really, really fast races so far. You see behind that is a new driver, somebody we haven't talked about yet. I don't even know his first name. I just am calling him M. Derringer. M. Derringer is driving a car nobody else has ever driven in this league, which is the, I think it's a Gallardo. And so it's interesting to see somebody drive a new car that we've never seen on the track with us. And so far so good. He's doing really well in the race tonight. And he's brand new. We don't know really anything about him yet, so we'll see what he's able to do. Currently running in 9th amongst a really fast group of drivers. Behind him is Stefan Buckley, and there is Eric Alvarez. So Alvarez has gained 1 position now. He got past Scott Taylor. He's up to 11th. Now he's trying to get past Stefan. We know Stefan is a pretty fast driver in his own right, but he definitely doesn't have the pace that Alvarez has here tonight. Alvarez really fast in practice and qualifying, and so far really fast in the race. Now, I know on the replay, for some reason, it does not show it, but in the first 25 laps of this race tonight, Mike Wojcik held the fastest lap. The fastest lap was held by Mike Wojcik, and we know he's out in the lead right now. I think he set that fastest lap pretty early in the race. So when you're watching the race live, I watch every race live, and then I come and do this broadcast after the fact. When you're watching the race live, there's a little purple marker that covers your position number to tell the person watching that person has set the fastest lap of the race. So Wojcik, for the first 25 laps of this race, is the fastest driver on the track. So I can tell you that right now. As fast as Alvarez was in qualifying and was in the first few laps of this race, Wojcik has in fact been even faster to this point. So Wojcik really doing well up front. Let's keep moving back through the order. Behind this, we've got Scott Taylor. He's not far behind. He's only 2.4 seconds behind those guys. So if they get tangled up, he's right there to pounce on them. Then a little bit further back, we've got Evan Miller. Evan running in 13th currently. And he's a little bit in no man's land right now. He's got somebody that's 6.9 seconds behind him, and he's 10 seconds behind the guy in front. So he's kind of on his own right now, just kind of settled into his race and doing what he can on his own, trying to catch the guys in front. After that, we've got Joe Marsiglia, who started in dead last. He's already gained 4 positions. He was in dead last to start the race, and he was in 18th, I think, to start the race, and he's currently in 14th, so he's making up some pace on people. After that, we got Maxwell Cerna, who's sporting a really good-looking livery. One of our guys said it looks like it's from Borderlands. It's like I don't even know how to describe it. It's like all the creases in the bodywork are highlighted to make it look almost cartoonish. You can see it there, pretty good look at it there. Really cool looking livery. It just looks awesome. And the McLaren is such a good looking car anyway, and has such beautiful lines. When you highlight them like that, it really looks good. So like that new livery that he's sporting tonight. And then finally we've got Nick Driveman. He's not in last because we've had a couple of people disappear already, so he's ahead of 2 other people, but he is behind. Currently he is 7.5 seconds behind Cerna, who we were just watching, so he's got some work to do to catch back up. So let's get back to the front. Here's Wojcik. He's got a 1.8 second lead over Jesse Albert, just trying to keep Jesse at bay and slowly pull away from him, but so far he's only been able to muster 1.8 seconds. On the other hand, Doherty is 3.1 seconds behind Albert, so Albert and Wojcik have kind of pulled away a little bit from the group here. Okay, now it just updated. Now it says 2.8. and it shows that Jesse's a little further back off of Wojcik, so he's up to 2.2 off of Wojcik. So you see Jesse ahead of Doherty there. There's Jesse, there's Doherty, there's Hasbrock, and then Perez behind those guys. So Mike Doherty is in the hunt to catch Jesse, and Hasbrock is kind of all over Mike Doherty, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with this battle as the race goes on. Perez has fallen off a little bit from Hasbrock. He is now 2 seconds behind Hasbrock, and Marchician looks to be reeling Pedro in slowly. He's just under 1.5 seconds behind Pedro. You see him there in the Nissan GTR. He's not too far behind Pedro. Then after that, Ken North is 3.7 seconds behind Marchician, so a little bit separated there. Not too far behind Ken North is another Lamborghini and M. Derringer, so two Lambos in the middle of the pack kind of battling it out right now. And that's kind of where we stand. We'll keep an eye on all these different battles as they go along. Wojcik, see what the most updated time split is, how he's doing with this lead. You see there that Doherty's got it under 3 seconds to Jesse Albert still. And Jesse is 2.4, so he's slowly losing ground to Wojcik. So we are going to take a lap. We may do a couple of laps on board with a couple different people. Let's see here. Let's take a look at where everybody's at on the track. Alright, here's Alvarez. Alvarez was our pole sitter. He just crossed the start-finish line. So here he is coming into turn 1. I'm going to take a lap on board with him. We know he's extremely fast. He's kind of in no man's land right now. He's currently shown in 9th place, but I think, well, he's moved all the way up to 9th place, so he's doing really, really well. He was behind Stephon Buckley, but he's gotten past him and Casey Bennett. Not sure how that happened, but he's on his way up through the field. You see Derringer and Ken North pretty close proximity to each other up ahead. So we'll see if Alvarez can catch both of those guys, and if he can, what he can do with them when he gets there. Whoa, Alvarez loses the back of the car. Just barely puts a little tap on the wall, trying to rejoin smoothly. But he's going to lose that position to Casey Bennett. So that's going to hurt his comeback tour that he's on. Got to make up some more ground now. Just the smallest of mistakes, just the rear end gets a little bit loose. What we're going to do is we're going to take a second lap with him because we haven't really talked about the track at all. So here he is coming around start-finish line. Alright, so here we are coming into turn 1. Turn 1, kind of a tricky turn. It's very flat, so the car wants to slide, especially the rear end of the car, depending on what car you're driving, wants to slide there. You come down this hill into a long, sweeping left-hander. You gain a lot of speed as you exit that turn if you do it properly, and then you got this long, high-speed stretch here. This takes you into a really high-speed left-hander, and then a little bit of a straightaway before you hit this hard braking zone into the bank turn. Steep banking on the turn there. Like I said before, the only bank turn on the track, just kind of a random one-off corner there. And then you have this triple chicane, which can be very tricky. The car gets very squirrely through that second part of that 3-turn chicane. Then you come down the hill here to another chicane. This one's kind of odd too. It's got a long sweeping left-hander as the second half. Then you got this really flat right-hander, another strange turn. You see Casey Bennett just kind of slowing down and letting Alvarez go. Maybe he realized he doesn't have the pace to hold Alvarez at bay. long sweeping set of right-handers right there. It's kind of like 2 turns more so than 1. Then you come down this long high-speed stretch into a hard right-hander, long braking zone. Tricky turn here because you come over the hill and the rear end of the car tries to get loose. And then you come back around to the start-finish line once again. So that's a lap around with our pole sitter, Eric Alvarez, who is currently in 9th place. Let's check back towards the front. Okay, so Albert has made some sort of mistake because he is now 4.3 seconds behind Wojcik. Wojcik kind of losing him now. But then again, Doherty is still 2.8 seconds behind Albert. So maybe Jesse didn't make the mistake. Maybe it was just Wojcik got that much faster. Not really sure. Meanwhile, back here you see Hasbrock and Marcheshin were side by side there for a second. Pedro made his way past Hasbrock. So Pedro on his way up the running order into 5th. Hasbrock trying to keep Marcheshin at bay. Andre's still getting comfortable with that GTR, but we know Andre is pretty much fast in anything he drives. Okay, so Hasbrock's coming into the pits, so he's going to jump out of that battle and go ahead and make his pit stop. Now, there's going to be a lot of pit stops coming up, so that's going to make the running order a lot different. Speaking of that, we got to keep an eye on where some of these leaders end up. See how much, like Alvarez, even though he had to pit to start the race, that was just a drive-through, so he still has to make a traditional pit stop just like everybody else. So that doesn't affect his mandatory pit stop. So with Hasbrock in the pits, that's going to put Marcheshin up into 5th. Everybody in the front right now is still out on the track. You see the lead that Wojcik has on Jesse is pretty large now. We see Jesse's got Mike Doherty all over him now. So I think that the time had not updated yet when it said that that Doherty was still 3 seconds behind Albert. I don't think that was correct. So obviously Doherty's all over Jesse Albert. So Jesse must have made some kind of mistake to fall back, maybe a couple of mistakes to fall back from the leader. So now it's just a question of who's going to pit and win. So we see Wojcik did not pit. We see these two guys coming through. They're not pitting. Pedro also staying out. So is Andre. So there's your top 5. They're all staying out on the track. Now you want to be fast all race. I mean, obviously to win you have to be fast the whole race. But you particularly want to be quick on the laps before you pit and the laps after you pit to try to minimize the time loss of a pit stop. Pit stops can be unpredictable, especially if you have any damage on the car. Even if it's just super minor damage, just those couple extra seconds in the pits can really cost you on the track. So you want to put in the best laps you can before you pit, and then when you come out of the pit you want to start that second stint really strong by putting in some good fast laps. So these guys are all working on that right now. Jesse's just got to settle back into his race. He put together a really good race so far, but he's had a couple of rough laps, falling back into the clutches of Doherty a little bit here. See if he can get it back under control and hold on to second. So you see Wojcik is pretty much out of the picture now. We don't see him very much in the shots as these cars drive by. He's quite a ways ahead. So speaking of Wojcik, he did not pit again. These guys also not pitting. Pedro is going to pit. Marcheshin's going to stay out. So that's going to give Marcheshin 4th place. So the differing strategies, you see Stephon Buckley in the pits also. Different guys using different strategies for their pit stops. So we see Wojcik comfortably in the lead right now, out in front. You see the lead he has. That's Jesse Albert coming down the hill back there. So it's a pretty good gap back to Albert and Doherty. Pretty comfortable lead for Wojcik. We know he is pretty comfortable in first place. You know, some guys get really squirrely when they get in the lead. They overthink things. They get a little uncomfortable. We've seen Mike lead and win a lot of races, and he's usually pretty calm in the front. So it's going to take a pretty big mistake for him to give it up tonight. But this is racing. Anything can happen in racing. We've seen just about everything you could imagine happen to guys, including pit problems where they had problems in pit lane. So you see the top three staying out for another lap. Marcheshin also staying out for another lap. Let's take a look at Ken. He's currently in fifth now. He's going to stay out for one more lap. Here comes Alvarez. He's in sixth. He's going to stay out for another lap. So everybody in the top six is staying out. See how that affects the overall course of the race. So Jesse's doing a pretty good job at keeping Doherty at bay right now. Despite having those couple mistakes, he's held steady since Doherty caught up to him. He's been really fast, so Doherty unable to get up to him. As I say that, he's trying to look to the inside, but that's actually going to turn into the outside, and it's going to be into a tight chicane. Doherty backs out of it. No reason to go too wide there. But he's right on Albert, trying to just keep the pressure on him. See Doherty run a little deep into the turn there. Cost him some time. He fell back. Okay, so Wojcik is in the pit, so that's going to give Jesse Albert the lead of the race. Put Mike Doherty up into second and Marcheshin in the third. So this is our new top three for the time being. Now, of course, that's going to change once everybody pits, but for now, that's where we stand. Now, some of these guys who pitted early, like Pedro is currently being shown in 12th place. And then we've got Hasbrock, who's currently being shown in 10th place. And those guys are going to move back up as everybody around them, in front of them, behind them continues to pit. So now it's just a question of when will these guys who are currently leading the race pit, because we know the fastest guy who hasn't or has pitted is Mike Wojcik. He's currently being shown in 5th. So Wojcik, wait, I clicked on the wrong person. He's being shown in 6th, excuse me. So Eric Alvarez is being shown in 5th, but I don't think Eric has pitted yet. No, in fact, he hasn't. So Wojcik being shown in 6th has pitted. So once all these guys in front pit, that's going to change everything as far as the running order. So we're just going to keep an eye on these guys and see when they decide to do that. See them coming to this long braking zone here in this slippery right-hand turn as you come down the hill. Seen a lot of people make big mistakes on that turn right there. Doesn't look that bad on TV, but when you're driving it, it is very slick. It's a very slick turn. You see Albert actually pulling a little bit of a gap on Mike Doherty now. Jesse finding some of the speed that he had earlier in the race, kind of putting down some faster laps now. Maybe feeling good that he's in the lead of the race, trying to make up as much time as he can while he's got clean track in front of him. Putting down some good times. Marchician is still 2.4 seconds behind Doherty, so he's been unable to catch Mike yet. But we know how fast these three guys are. Then after that, we've got Ken North, who's kind of on his own right now. Ken currently being shown in 4th. Ken is one of those guys that's just always there. He's always in the top 10. A lot of times he's in the top 5. And every race, it seems like when the end of the race comes around, you're like, oh, there's Ken. He's in 4th place. And you didn't even hardly notice him the whole race. And then there he is at the end of the race up in the front. He's just kind of consistency. You know, he's so consistent. Does a great job of managing the whole race from the first stint to the pit stop to the second stint. Does a great job on all of that. So we'll get back up to the front. We see Albert and these guys coming around. See if these guys pit this lap. They will not. So that's another lap where they're not going to pit. Same thing for Marchician. He's staying out as well. Take a look at Ken North, see if he's going to pit or not. Whoa, a little bit of server lag there, or something. A little bit of a lag spike, but Ken's going to stay out also. Eric Alvarez is going to pit, though. He's coming in, so we'll see where he ends up after his pit stop. You see, looks like Evan Miller is in the pits right now. Let's double check. Yep, that's Evan in the pits right now. So he is pitting. Looks like he's got a little bit of damage on his car. Might have to repair that too. So a pretty heavyweight battle going on right now between Jesse Albert and Mike Doherty. Jesse's trying to hold him at bay and keep it from being too much of a battle. But this is going to be interesting because if these guys decide to pit together, they're going to be all over each other after their pit stops too. So it's really going to be close, depending on who has a better pit in lap and pit out lap. You know, when you're a racing driver, that's something in sim racing we don't practice enough, I don't think, but in real racing they practice the in lap and the out lap a lot, because that can really decide who wins a race, and it's a pretty huge part of racing. A lot of these guys are great at it without really practicing it per se. We see Doherty breaking off. Looks like Doherty's going to last second dive into the pits. Whoa, took a little bit of a risk there. Marchician's going to stay out, so Marchician's going to claim 2nd place. Doherty in the pits. You see Maxwell Cerna in the pits there also. Ken North is going to stay out for another lap, and then we've got Mike Wojcik, who's quite a ways behind those guys, but he is just waiting for everyone in front of him to pit, because he is technically our leader. He is the leader of the race. He was quite a ways ahead when he pitted, so there's no reason he won't be quite a ways ahead once everybody ahead of him does also. So we see Albert coming into that triple chicane. He's finally got some decent breathing room, over 3 seconds back to Marchician. Marchician has got a 14-second lead over Ken North. That's a pretty wide gap between those two guys. It's going to be interesting to see where some of these guys shake out after everybody has pitted. It seemed like we had more people pit early in this race than we typically do. Maybe that's just my imagination, but it seemed like more guys went a little bit early on their pit stop. We know Hasbrock went early, Pedro went early, and I'm not sure who else. So we see Doherty on Scott Taylor. That is... Wait a minute. It says that's for position, but I don't think Taylor has pitted yet. I could be wrong about that, but I think Scott is still... We're getting towards the end of the pit window here, so Scott may be going to pit this lap. We know Scott wasn't up there with Doherty before, so there's no way that he is now. He just hasn't pitted yet, so... See, he's doing his best to stay in front of Mike, but Mike is really fast here tonight, so it's going to take a little bit for him to stay ahead of him. looks like Scott's breaking off to pit right now. So these guys are on, they're all on a voice channel together during the races, so these guys communicate stuff like that throughout the course of the race. So we see somebody coming out of the pits back there. That was Hasbrock and Marchician. Marchician is actually ahead of Hasbrock now. So somehow Marchician ended up, or wait a minute. Yeah, Marchician ended up passing Hasbrock in the pits. I can't remember if Marchician was ahead of Hasbrock. I thought he was behind Hasbrock before that pit stop, but maybe I'm incorrect there. So we got Marchician and Hasbrock very close to each other. We got Stefan Buckley behind these guys, but that's not for position. You do have, okay, we're missing some of the action here. We got Doherty right on the back door of Jesse Albert after all the pit stops shook out. So Albert maintains second, able to stay ahead of Doherty. Not by much, but he's ahead of him. And now Mike's got some work to do. This is a very hard track to pass on. We have seen some good passes, but it's hard to pull them off. It's hard to do it cleanly. So you see Marchician and Hasbrock both in the dirt back there. Looked like Marchician ran a little wide and Hasbrock just followed him. Sometimes you get hooked to the guy in front, you just do whatever he does. They both were in the grass for a second there. So Marchician is all the way up to fourth. He's having a really good race. I don't think we've talked about how good he's been doing because it didn't seem like he was. But here he is in fourth place after all the pit stops, in great position for the rest of this race. Pedro had something happen with his pit stop. Not sure what happened there, but he has fallen back to 9th place. We know he was in the top 5 before. He was up there with Doherty. So not sure what happened to him on his either his in lap or his out lap, but something happened to drop him back to 9th place. We saw him kind of hesitate when he was getting into his pit stall, so maybe he went to the wrong pit stall, not really sure. But now he's got Ken North right in front of him, and that's a pretty heavyweight battle between these two guys. These guys are always up towards the front. Meanwhile, ahead of them is Eric Alvarez. You see Evan Miller there, but that's not for position, so Evan's going to let Alvarez go here shortly. Alvarez is currently in 7th. There's Miller letting Alvarez go. Alvarez currently in 7th, so he's recovered 5 positions after having to do that drive-through early in the race. And considering that this is a really hard track to pass on, that's a pretty good job by Alvarez to gain 5 spots. So good job by him. Derringer in his first race with us, and in a car that we've never seen race with us before, is up in 6th place right now, and he's having a really good race. We saw him a while back. He was behind Ken North, but now he's 2 positions ahead of Ken North. He's really having a nice race in that Gallardo. I believe it's a Gallardo. Don't kill me if it's a different car, but I'm pretty sure that is a Gallardo. But, and I don't know if I'm saying that word right or not. But, you see him running strong here in 6th place. The closest guy in front of him is 5.1 seconds ahead, and that is Hasbrock, who is still all over Andre Marchician. So we got a close battle with Marchician and Hasbrock. We got a close battle with Jesse Albert and Mike Doherty, although it looks like Doherty has fallen back a little bit off of Albert. He's over a second behind now, which, I mean, a second is not that much, but on the track it looks like a pretty good gap, you know. When you're moving at high speeds, a second is a pretty large gap. So Albert's doing a good job of pulling away from Doherty, trying to keep the stronghold he's had on 2nd place for the whole race, just trying to hang on to that. We we know Doherty is Old Faithful. We've called him that since season 1. He's Old Faithful. He's never going to really make a mistake. So if Jesse makes one mistake, Mike's going to get him. So we'll see if Jesse can hold on to it. That's Maxwell Cerna in front of Albert. He's going to have to deal with him. Meanwhile, we haven't looked at Wojcik in a while. Wojcik is way out in front. He's 14.6 seconds ahead of second place, which is Jesse Albert. So he's got almost a 15-second lead, comfortable in that lead. All he's got to do is finish strong, and he's going to bring it home. So I didn't check how many laps we are running tonight. We are running 38 laps tonight. We are currently on lap 24, so we've got about 14 laps to go. With 14 laps to go, a lot of things can still change. This battle between Doherty and Jesse Albert can definitely heat up, although Doherty seems to be falling back. He's back to 2.4 seconds now, so something's happened there where he's fallen back off of Albert. Marchician and Hasbrock are still going at it pretty strong. Keep an eye on that. And I'm looking back through the field. There's not a lot of close battles going on. There's this battle here between Ken North and Pedro Perez, but it's over 2.5 seconds. It's a pretty good gap. You see Evan Miller letting Pedro go by there. One thing I will say about tonight's race, we've seen a really good job by guys who were, I don't want to say back markers, because some of these guys are actually having really good races, but they're still getting passed by the leader. We're seeing guys who are lap traffic do a really good job of letting people through. It's not an easy thing to do when a faster guy runs you down from behind and you're on a technical track like Oulton Park. You're having a hard enough time dealing with the track itself. Then you got to deal with letting somebody go by without causing an incident. And these guys have done a great job with that tonight. We've had a lot of people, Wojcik being as far ahead as he is, he's passed a lot of lap traffic. So everybody's done a great job of letting these guys go and being respectful. So we'll take a look on board with Wojcik. This is starting a new lap here. It just went through turn 1. See how nice and smooth he gets back on the gas as he's coming out of that long sweeper. Try to get a look at why he's so far out in front. All the way down into first for the triple chicane there. Does a great job managing that, making it look really easy. As somebody who has run a couple 300 laps here over the years, I can tell you that triple chicane is not that easy. He made it look a lot easier than it really is. This right here is a really tricky part of the track. The way the track bends left and then goes back right, it makes the track narrower than it actually is, and it's really easy to end up in the grass on either side. These guys all night have been making that look easy. That is a tricky set of turns right there. Just slight turns at high speed. Doesn't take much of a mistake to cause a big issue. You see Wojcik all the way back to turn 1 already, so he's setting some really great laps. Now, we were talking about earlier the fact that Wojcik had set the fastest lap in the race. Well, Eric Alvarez, who is currently dealing with Ken North being all over him, but right about this point in the race, right about 25 laps to go, or 25 laps in the books, 26 laps in the books, Eric Alvarez set the fastest lap in the race, and pretty sure that lap held for the rest of the race as the fastest lap. So even though Eric's had a couple hiccups in his race tonight. He's still showing really, really good speed throughout the course of the race. And like we said, he's gained, 5 positions after that drive-through penalty. It's on a tough track to pass, so he's done really well there. You see Pedro trying to get caught up to Ken North. Pedro's in 9th. Doing a good job being in the top 10. It's a fast top 10 tonight. So Casey Bennett is currently our 10th place driver. He is, I think he's pretty comfortably ahead of 11th place. So I think Casey's pretty comfortable in 10th. It would take a pretty big mistake for him to lose the top 10 finish. In fact, the time is not popping up, so I'm not even sure how far. You see Casey's 15.5 seconds behind Pedro himself, so that's a 15-second gap, and then I'm not even sure how big the gap is from Casey back to Scott Taylor, but it looks like it's pretty wide because Scott, there it is, 29.9 seconds, so Casey's 30 seconds ahead of Scott Taylor. So Scott doesn't have too much of a chance of getting into the top 10 unless something happens in front of him where somebody ends up in the pits or a really bad incident. But then he's way ahead of Stephon Buckley. So there's big gaps between all these guys right here, really large gaps. Then you get up here and you got some closer battles going on. You got Ken North on the back of Alvarez, Pedro Perez on the back of Ken North. And these guys have got some laps to go. They got work to do. So if they're going to finish where they are or better, they got to get on their horse and go. Meanwhile, up in the front, you see Jesse is now 17 seconds behind Wojcik. So Wojcik has, for all intents and purposes, he's checked out of the race at this point. He's got a large lead, 17 seconds. Doherty's only 1.5 seconds behind Albert. So still maintaining that gap to where he's almost within reach of Jesse, but not quite able to get to him. Jesse's done a great job. After that couple whatever mistakes he made, we never saw any of them. We just saw the times change. But whatever happened, he recovered really well from them because he's kept Doherty at bay the rest of the race so far. So, and then we've got Marchician, who was dealing with Hasbrock, but Hasbrock has fallen back off of him. He's over 5 seconds behind Marchician. So Marchician pretty comfortable in 4th. He's got about 3.2 seconds to catch Doherty. He's going to have to be pretty fast to catch Mike Doherty, especially considering they're driving the same car. So he's going to have to do much quicker laps in the same exact car to catch Doherty. Not sure. We know Andre is really fast. I can't sell him short. He's shown some incredible speed, and he's done it in some cars that are hard to be fast in. We saw him when he first joined us. He was really fast in the Aston Martin, and that's not an easy car to be fast in. Interesting enough, back in those days, Marchician and Doherty were both driving the same car back then. They were both driving the Aston Martin, and now here they are in the same car, even using the same livery. So yeah, these guys, there's some kind of connection there that maybe the greater group of people that do this, watch us race and race with us, maybe don't know. There's like a friendship between these two guys. They're both representing the Godzilla GTR, and I'm all for that. I love the Nissan GTR, so happy to see it represented here. So we'll keep an eye on that time. Marchician is 2.4 seconds behind Doherty. So he's not that far. He's not that far behind Mike. So if Mike makes any kind of mistake or even just slacks off a little bit, Marchician will catch him. You see it's down to 2.1, so he's actually catching him. Meanwhile, Doherty is back up over 2 seconds to Albert. So Doherty's lost a little bit of pace these last lap or two here. That's allowing Marchician to kind of reel him in a little bit. So we'll see what happens there. We know Andre and Mike are both going to get faster as the season goes on, because we saw it last season with these guys. We've seen it several seasons with Andre, because he's changed cars a few times. And every time he changes cars, about the midpoint of the season is when he finally has that car kind of dialed in, and he gets really fast in the second half of the season. We saw that last season with Mike Doherty. Mike was really unhappy with the car that he chose. He was driving the new Audi, and that car just did not fit him well. But even with the fact that it didn't fit him well, by the end of the season, he was fast as hell in it. He figured it out, learned how to be fast in that thing, and became really a strong contender, even in a car he didn't like. So he even briefly talked about driving it again this season. And I was thinking, man, if you don't like it, like if you didn't like it to start the season, why would you stick with it another season? But Mike he's like me. When he gets comfortable with something, he kind of likes to stick with it. I'm the same way. I don't know how these guys change cars every season. I would be driving one car probably every season, but I understand it. It makes it more interesting when you're in a new car and got a new challenge from season to season. So we see Hasbrock is now 7.7 seconds behind Marcheshin. So Aiden has fallen back off of Marcheshin quite a bit. He's still 7.2 seconds ahead of Derringer, so he's not really under threat from Derringer, but he needs to keep an eye on that. Like we said, we're doing 38 laps tonight. We've still got 7 more to go, so too many mistakes by any of these guys, and we're going to see some position changes. Ken North has still got Pedro behind him, but you see the gap there. It's almost 2 seconds, 1.7 seconds. And you see up ahead of that is Eric Alvarez, but that is not for position. Eric is getting past Stefan Buckley, who's letting him go right now on that straightaway. Stefan is a little further back in the running order. He's doing a good job letting people through. So our closest battle right now is this one for third place. We got Mike Doherty and Andre Marcheshin. And I think, yeah, that's pretty much it. Now Albert has actually caught up to Wojcik some. Not sure if Mike made some mistakes or if Jesse's just cranking up the speed. Jesse has pulled away from Doherty. He's up to 3.6 seconds ahead of Doherty now, so he's kind of settled back into the pace that he had early in the race. He's pulled away from Doherty. Doherty looks like he might be struggling for pace just a little bit because he's fallen back off of Jesse Albert and kind of fallen into the clutches of Marcheshin here. We've seen Marcheshin and Doherty race really close over the seasons that we've had. These guys have had a lot of close racing battles over 3 seasons now, into the 4th season. So we've seen this show before. We can't really say that either one of them. Probably would say that Doherty has gotten the better of more than Marcheshin, but I could be wrong about that because Andre has had a lot of top finishes. He's been up in the front quite a lot, so you see him all over Doherty right now. Let's take a look on board with Andre just to see what it looks like from his view. So, these guys being in the same car, there is no strength or weakness. There's no braking difference. I mean, there could be downforce difference and tire pressure differences and things like that that can give one guy a little bit of an edge over another, but that's going to be very minute. The braking is going to be very similar. The acceleration is going to be really, really similar. Top end is going to be really similar. And everything, unless they have a vastly different setup, everything should be pretty even. So we'll see what Andre can do here. We'll just kind of ride on board for a minute here. You see how easy these guys make that triple chicane look. That is quite a feat, because that is not an easy set of turns right there. That's giving me, you can tell it's given me fits over the years, because I keep talking about how complicated it is. It is. I've been sim racing for a long time, and that set of turns right there has given me a really hard time over the years. Trying to get an idea of where Andre might be quicker than Mike. If it's in the slower sections or the high-speed sections, or where he's quicker. But ever since we jumped on board, he doesn't look like he is quicker. They pretty much stayed static. So a little bit quicker through turn 1 right there. Caught up to Mike a little bit there. Mike a little heavy on the brake through that turn. It's going to give Andre a little bit of an advantage. We'll see how they do through this really high-speed sweeper right here. Pretty much dead even there. Coming into the bank turn. Seems like if Andre has an advantage, it's a little bit in the braking zones. He's just gaining a little bit in the braking zones over Doherty, some of the harder braking zones. You see Mike get through that triple chicane really clean, pulls the gap back on Andre. But then Andre later on the brakes, able to close the gap back down. So I think that's where Andre has the advantages in these harder braking areas. He's braking a little bit later, and you know that could be so many things. That could be the tire's temperature, that could be the brakes temperature, that could be what you have your brake duct set to. It could be even what kind of pedals you use on your sim rig. Maybe Doherty's just not as aggressive as Andre is. Maybe they're running similar gear in the same car, but Andre is just a little more aggressive. I mean, every driver has his own style and has his own feel for the car, so pretty interesting watching these two guys in the same car duke it out, though. It's pretty fun watching them battle it out. See Doherty a little quicker through that turn there that time. Marchician runs a little wider, trying to maintain speed. He does get a good exit. I mean, these guys are pretty darn even. This is where Andre continues to catch him, is in these long braking zones, but Doherty's quick enough through everything else that every time Andre catches up to him, he widens the gap again, like that right there. He pulls out another couple tenths, gets the gap a little bit wider, and then Andre's going to catch him right here, probably in this hard braking zone, gets right back up on him again. And then Mike will gain a little bit through this turn here, which he seems to be a little quicker through. And you see the gap widens. So pretty even fight between these guys. It's going to take a mistake from Doherty, and we know Doherty doesn't make very many mistakes. That's one thing we've watched him race for a long time now. And we have not seen him make many mistakes. When he does, it's like seeing a 4-leaf clover or something. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe Mike Doherty made a mistake. So, it doesn't happen very often. Alright, let's take a look through the field. We've been riding with these guys for quite a while. So we got Wojcik, Jesse has cut the lead to Wojcik down to under 15 seconds. It was at one point, I think, almost 18 seconds. Or it was over 17, I know that for sure. I can't remember if it ever actually hit 18 seconds, but Jesse has cut into the lead, but it's still 14.9, so Wojcik is very comfortable in the lead still. Doherty's up over 4.4 seconds behind Albert now, so Jesse's pretty comfortable in second. Of course, he's got Marchician all over him. We're going to keep a close eye on that. 11 seconds behind those guys is Hasbrock. He's in no man's land right now. 8 seconds behind him is Derringer. who is followed by Eric Alvarez. Eric's still holding down 7th place. We've only got about 2 laps to go, a little less than 2 laps to go. So not sure if any of these guys are going to be able to make anything happen. And Ken North has done a great job at holding off a very fast driver in Pedro Perez. He's still got a 1.2 second lead over Pedro. Honestly, if you had asked me a few laps ago, I would have said Pedro was going to catch him and challenge for that position, but so far it hasn't happened. So great job by Ken to hold on to that spot. And then we've got Casey Bennett still holding down 10th place. Considering how fast this group of drivers is, I think you got to be pretty satisfied with 10th place. So some of the guys behind Casey have had rougher races. I'm not sure about Scott Taylor, but I know Stefan Buckley was up further in the pack and then fell back. Not sure what happened to him. We know Evan had an incident earlier which cost him some time in position. Not sure about Joe or Maxwell. We've seen, I think one point we were riding with the leader and we saw Maxwell on the side of the track letting people cruise by, so not sure what happened to him there. But these guys are all still okay. Now here's Doherty dealing with some lap traffic, and Marchician's cruising past also. Good job by Scott Taylor to let both of those guys go. Found a spot where he could let two cars go and let them both go. That's not easy to do. Did a good job with that. That's going to let Marchician gain back up on Doherty a little bit. We're going to jump back on board with Marchician. We've only got 1 lap left in the race, I believe. Actually, we missed the finish of the race. So busy watching all the action that we missed the leader taking the finish line. So here comes Wojcik. Dominant win by Mike Wojcik. We've seen him do this before. It's certainly no surprise. But he's going to take the win after leading. Ever since Alvarez pitted early in the race, Wojcik never surrendered the lead. So he's going to come in first. Jesse Albert's going to bring it in second. Good finish by Jesse. Looked like he was going to give it up at one point as he fell back to Mike Doherty. Looked like Doherty was going to get him. But Albert holds on, and then Doherty is going to hold on to beat Marchician. Close battle between those guys. Good racing by both of them. And Hasbrock in 5th. And Derringer in his first race with us. Eric Alvarez did finally catch him at the end of the race, but just doesn't have the time to beat him. Derringer's going to finish in 6th, Alvarez in 7th. Alvarez recovering from that penalty early on. Ken North and Pedro Perez are both finished. Here comes Casey Bennett. We're going to run out of footage here any minute. Not sure when it's coming, but it is coming. But here's Casey Bennett crossing the line. He's going to finish in, it says 9th, but I'm pretty sure he got 10th. Okay, so everybody's done. Oops, wrong button. Sorry about that. Okay, so we're going to do what we often do, and that is we're going to go back to the start of the race, and we are going to ride along with someone. I think we're going to ride along with Mike Doherty. I wanted to take a couple of laps with Doherty at some point during the race, but never got a chance to. These guys are coming around for the start of the race. You see Alvarez just a little bit ahead of where he's supposed to be. That's what he got the drive-through for. And there's the green flag, so that's the start of the race right there. Doherty's on the inside of Pedro Perez. That's going to give him the advantage through this first turn. Everybody gets through there nice and clean. You see Albert slide out wide a little bit, but he had room. These guys moving through into this long sweeping left-hander. Everybody's already single file. That's the thing about Oulton Park, is you have to figure out where you're going to be and get there, because side-by-side racing just does not work on this track. There's very few areas where you can race side-by-side for any length of time. So you see everybody coming through the bank turn here. You can see the whole top 4 from 5th place. Doherty got a good start now. Some of you who have been watching since the early days of this league, back in those days, Mike Doherty would always get terrible starts and fall back a few positions, and then he would end up finishing like 2nd place or something. He's definitely gotten better at the start of races. He doesn't lose any positions anymore, and that's something he's had to do because the competition in the league in the whole top 10 has gotten much faster. So if you're going to get a good finish, you got to start strong. You can't fall back at the beginning of the race. So Mike's gotten that cleaned up, and he was already dangerous even when he used to do that, but now that he doesn't do that, he's even more dangerous. So that's it, guys. That's one whole lap from the start of the race. Great race tonight. Everybody's having, I mean, there's a couple of guys who have had rough starts to their season. I'm not going to name any names, but a couple of guys are just kind of, well, a little bit unlucky, just in the wrong place at the wrong time a couple of times in the first couple of races. And, you know, I just want to tell those guys, keep on doing what you're doing. It's going to work out for the best. Sometimes, you know, lady luck is just not on your side. And when it's at the start of a season, it can be frustrating because it feels like, you know, you're kind of behind the 8 ball. But you can turn a season around. We've seen some guys have really great turnarounds in this league before. So we had one season. I'll go ahead and call out who it was. It was our good buddy Joe Marsiglia. Joe had one season with us where I think the first 3 races he got caught up in accidents, or, you know, hit the wall or got bumped from behind, or it was like his race was just snake bit or something. Like everything that could go wrong had gone wrong to start the season. I think it was the first 3 races of a season. And I remember talking to him and just being like, man, it's got to get better. It can only get better from here. And it did. His season ended up finishing really nicely. He had some good races after that. But it can be discouraging early in a season when things are kind of tough and you have a few bad breaks and maybe a pit penalty or something like that messes up a race for you. So, you know, for those guys, hang in there. For the winners tonight, Wojcik, Albert, and Doherty, you know, great race by those guys. Congrats to Mike Wojcik for another strong win. And we've got a really fast group of guys in this league now. Like the top 10 is just stacked with speed. And so every week it's going to be really intense in qualifying. The races are going to continue to be really intense. And the quality of the racing is only going to just keep getting better and better as we collect more fast drivers as time goes by. And some of the guys that we had from the beginning that weren't fast when we started have become some of our fastest drivers. So, you know, the amount of speed is just, it's increasing every week, every season, every week. And, you know, we've seen guys ascend to the top and really finish strong at the end of some of these seasons. So, having a lot of fun, guys. I hope y'all are having fun watching. Thanks for watching the race as always, and we will see you next week. Next week we are at one of the new tracks. We are at Indianapolis, which is one of the tracks from the new expansion that just came out right before this season started. So next week we're at Indianapolis. We've never run there as a league, obviously, because it wasn't in the game. So that's going to be a new experience for everybody, and we look forward to what excitement that brings. So thanks again for watching. We'll see you guys next week.